Hello friends, welcome to the fourth turn of this Soviet rematch of the classic Escape from Velikiye Luki scenario, which can be downloaded for free from the MMP publishing website. This rematch follows a complete overhaul of the Soviet defensive position, which appears to have been a great success. The objectives of this overhaul were basically two. 1. To remove the cloaking markers and, consequently, the advantages associated with these markers. 2. To ensure that the Soviet units gain, as quickly as possible, the important freedom of movement, which will allow the targeting and concentration of defensive forces to the locations where these units are vital. To achieve these objectives, the Soviet units, as well as their leaders, were positioned further forward and closer to the roads. In this way, the first of these objectives was fully achieved, because at this point, at the beginning of the fourth turn, all the German units, apart from Unit J, which is a dummy, are without the protection of the cloaking markers. The second of these objectives was also fully achieved, since all the real Soviet units already have freedom of movement, and those that do not have it must gain this advantage this turn. In addition, the proximity to the roads significantly reduced the possibility of Soviet forces getting lost, a condition for which these units are extremely willing since they are considered lax, as we could see in the episodes prior to this rematch. Follow the link. The Germans, in turn, are not progressing as intended and, for the most part, are contained in positions still within the first half of board 3, far below their objectives. One of the factors that seems to have contributed to this horrible situation seems to have been, in addition to the merits of a better positioning of the Soviet forces, the fact that the Germans divided their forces into two main routes of advance, greatly reducing the concentration of their firepower, which, in turn, greatly facilitated the activation of the Soviet units that quickly gained freedom of movement throughout the entire length of the scenario. To try to correct this error, the Germans will try to change the axis of advance to just one main line, with the aim of concentrating their forces in a certain sector, where they will try to overcome the Soviet defensive positions to advance. Rally phase German turn 4. Wind change. 4-3 no wind change. Soviet squad rally attempt at 3y8 with modifiers of -1, building, -1, leader. 8-2, 6, squad recovers morale. Prep fire phase. Soviet leader at 3y8 will attempt to launch a star shell over his own hex, requiring 4 or less to succeed. 1. Success, and this star shell will move 1 hex away. 5. The star shell will be deposited over hex 3 times 8. Squad fire with light machine gun at 3L4 on Soviet units at L2 with the help of the German leader. The fire should occur with only 2 firepower. The target is under the concealment marker, but Jim completely ignores this basic fact. The modifiers will be +2, stone wall advantage, +1, hindrance due to night conditions, -2, German leader. 1, 6, 7, +1, 8, pin test check, machine gun maintains rate of fire and stacking Soviet dummy is mistakenly eliminated. The remaining squad in this hex will take advantage of the machine gun's firing rate and fire on the Soviet squad in hex 3I3 with 6 firepower +1, height advantage. 6 +1, 7, normal morale check with possible activation of the Soviet sniper. 8. The Soviet unit's morale is broken. 2. The smaller Soviet sniper is activated. 6-4. The target of the Soviet attack will be a unit in the German stack in 3y8 to be chosen randomly. The leader 9-1 is chosen and suffers a wound, becoming a leader 8-0. To assess the severity of the wound, a die will be rolled, and if the value is 5 or 6, the wound will be considered fatal, and the Soviet leader will be eliminated. 4. The leader's wound is not mortal, and he will continue in the battle. Movement phase. Unit J moves in assault movement to 3M5. Stack consisting of the leader 8-1 with the half squad, and the squad in 3Y8 becomes CX and move to U9. At 3 times 8, this stack enters the line of sight of the Soviet units in BB8 that gain freedom of movement. In this movement, thanks to the presence of the star shell, it is not necessary to roll the dice to check for strain. The remaining wounded leader moves to 3 times 8 using the 3 movement factors he is entitled to. Squad in 3M7 moves to P7 out of line of sight of the Soviets in O5. Defensive fire phase. No actions. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. 3S5 to T4. Advance phase. Cloaked unit J to the upper floor of 3M5. Stacking from the lower floor of 3L4 to the upper floor. 3T7 to P6. 3U9 to U8 with elimination of the Soviet dummy stack that was in this hex. 3 times 8 to W9. Close combat phase. Leader in 3W9 and the stack in U8 regain the concealment marker. Rally phase Soviet turn 4. Wind change. 6-4. No wind changes but night vision range expands to 8 hexes. Soviet unit attempts to auto-rally in 3T4 with the more modifiers 1 auto-rally plus 4 Dn minus 1 building. 6 plus 4 10 morale is not restored and the Dn marker is removed. Prep fire phase. No actions. Movement phase. Stacking at 3BB8 will move to 3A9 and needs to perform a strain check to do so. Upon reaching 3A9, it can move freely as it is in a hex adjacent to the road, ending movement at Y9. Soviet squads in 3Z3 gain freedom of movement for having started the movement phase together with the leader who had already achieved freedom of movement. These squads move to 3W2. Leader 9-1 becomes CX and moves to 3U4. 3R1 to Q2 in assault movement. Upper floor of 3M2 to N1 upper floor. Defensive fire phase. Stacking at 3L4 fires 8 firepower on the Soviet squad with broken morale at I3 with the modifier +1, height advantage. 11 plus 1, 12, unsuccessful. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. 3I3 to I2. Advance phase. 3Q2 to P2. 3N1 upper floor to N2 upper floor. Leader in 3U4 to T4. 3 times 4 to W4. 3Y9 to X8. 3W2 to V1. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase German turn 5. Wind change. 1. Let's roll 1 die to assess the wind change. 1. The wind should change direction 1 hex clockwise. Since currently there is no wind, this wind change does not occur. Soviet squad attempts to rally in 3T4 with the modifiers -1, building, -1, leader. 7-2, 5. The squad recovers morale. Prep fire phase. No actions. Leader 8-1 will attempt to launch a starshell onto his hex. 2. Success. 4. The starshell is deposited onto hex 3U9. Movement phase. Wounded leader in 3W9 moves to T8. Stack up in 3U8 moves to T8. Cloak J from upper floor of 3M4 to lower floor. German stack up on upper floor of 3L4 moves toward L5. To move from 3L5 to L6, the possibility of straying must be assessed. 1. 5. There is no straying and the stack continues to 3L6. In this hex, it suffers an attack from the Soviet squad in 305 with 4 firepower plus 2, FFMO, FFNAM, plus 1, height advantage. 4-1, 3. 2 morale checks and possible activation of the German sniper, which Jim does not perform. 8+2, 10. The leader is pinged. 5+2, 7. The first squad is pinged. 3+2, 5. The second squad passes. 3T6 moves to 3Q6. Defensive fire phase. No actions. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. 3I2 to J1. Advance phase. 3L6 to M7. 3Q6 to R5. 3T8 to S8. Close combat phase. Soviet squad in R5 gets the concealment marker back, as do Soviet units in 3 and 2. Rally phase. Soviet turn 5. Wind change. 6. 1 without wind change but with reduction in night vision range to 7. Soviet squad attempts auto rally in 3J1 with the modifiers of +1, auto rally, +4, de-aim, -1, woodland. 6+4, 10, morale is not recovered, and the de-aim marker is removed. Prep fire phase. Soviets in 305 fire on the German stack in L6 with 4 firepower +1, ridge. 8+1, 9, it is a failure. Movement phase. 3T3203 in attack movement requesting wall advantage. In this hex it suffers an attack on 3M7 from 5 hexes away with 2 firepower, hidden unit, +2, wall advantage, +1, night hindrance. 8+3, 11, is a miss. New shot with 1 firepower +3. 8+3, 11, unsuccessful. Stacking on 3W4 to W5 with the assessment of the possibility of straying. 5, 6, no straying and the unit continues to 3W5. 3V1 to U2 acquiring the wall advantage. 3T4 moves to S3. 3 times 8 becomes CX and moves to Y5. Defensive fire phase. Stacking on 3M6 fires on the Soviet squad in Q5 with 6 firepower +3, stone house, +1, night hindrance, -2, leader. 6+2, 8, pin test check and possible activation of the Soviet sniper. 4. The Soviet squad passes and there is a possible activation of the sniper German. 2. The smaller Soviet sniper is activated. 1, 4. The sniper moves to hex 3Y2. This hex is equidistant from the German units at 3S8 and R5. By random selection, this sniper will pin the German unit at 3R5. 5. The German sniper is not activated. Advancing fire phase. No actions. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. 3w5 to v4 requesting wall advantage, which is legal and will be fixed next turn. 3s3 to r3. 3y5 to y4. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase German turn 6. Alright friends, at this point, when the Teutonic forces are trying to radically change their approach in this scenario, we end this clip. With the complete change in the disposition of their units in relation to the previous game, the Soviets gained significant tactical superiority and, at the beginning of the 6th turn, practically trapped the Germans on map 1, completely restricting the enemy's possibilities of advancing. Reacting to this situation, and having to face the Soviet forces in a state of total alert, with all non-dummy units gaining freedom of movement, the Germans find themselves pressured to radically change their tactics and will direct their efforts towards a single assault route, concentrating their firepower to try to break the enemy's defensive circle. This strategy seems to be the most correct one, and should have been developed from the beginning of the scenario. The change is very welcome, but it may prove to be one of those measures to be considered too little, too late, since half of the scheduled turns have already been completed and the distance to be covered by the Germans to be able to make the exit through the extreme north of the scenario, which if it occurs, will happen within the limits of possibilities. I hope to see you in the next episode. Namaste.